You know that feeling when something turns out exactly the way you intended it to, exactly how you pictured it in your mind? I hope you've gotten to experience that before. I haven't too often, but sometimes things turn out exactly how I thought and hoped and wanted, and it's really cool. Maybe for you it's been like a meal, like you were grilling something or cooking, and you just say, perfection, this is exactly what I pictured it would be. Maybe it's with an artistic project, maybe like a home remodel project or restoring a car even. I know my wife loves to do puzzles. She'll like do a whole puzzle, and when it's done, it's just that sense of, now this puzzle is as it should be. There's a beautiful word for that, and you may have heard the word before. I'd heard it my whole life, but I always kind of misunderstood it. It's the word shalom. Shalom, we get it from the Jewish culture, a Hebrew word, and I always thought shalom was more like a greeting that you sort of like aloha, kind of a hello goodbye, or that it just means peace. But shalom actually has a way deeper, more beautiful meaning to it. Shalom is the idea of wholeness and of harmony and of things being put together exactly the way they were intended to be. And I want to talk about this word for a minute because this is the final piece of the story of everything. That's what I've been talking about this week, the story that explains God and the universe and us and why we're here. You can watch any of those if you missed them, but I talk about the four main pieces of the story of everything. It's all about creation. God created everything exactly as He intended it to be in its perfection and beautiful harmony. And then fall. The fall came, brokenness entered, sin entered. That's what we all are feeling the effects of even this week, all the brokenness and hurt all over our country and our world. And then redemption, that God ultimately does something about that anything in our lives can be redeemed, and we can be redeemed even as people from our brokenness. And last piece is restoration. And here's the great news. You're going to love this part of the story of everything, is where the story is headed. God, His mission, in case you didn't know, is to restore everything back to shalom, back to exactly how it was intended to be. He's been in a process ever since the book of Genesis, since the beginning of time, of restoring the world and putting it back together. Jesus even says that's the reason why He came. If you read in the Gospels, people always hear John 3:16, that's why He came. And it is, that was that He so loved us, He wanted to open up a relationship with us. But the other main reason He came, He says in Luke 4:17 and 18, as He's quoting Isaiah, He says, I came to restore sight to the blind, restore freedom to prisoners. And so many of us are still imprisoned to different things in our lives. He came to restore things and heal them and put them back how they're meant to be. And of course, we saw Him live that out in His life. He didn't just talk about it. He actually did it. He restored people physically through healing, and mentally, emotionally. He restored people's identity. Used to be a prostitute or a hated outcast. He restored them to something else. He restored unity. He taught us how to treat women and children and all races with respect and with honor, just as God intended them to be back when He first created humans. So restoration is where our story is ultimately headed. Man, we need it now more than ever, don't we? I mean, racism, divisiveness, violence. I mean, you see it on the news, on your social media every day. I see it in my own town that I live in this quaint beach town. It has a lot of darkness, a lot of hurting and pain. I'm on the board for a great organization, for Grace, which is all about helping girls that were rescued out of human trafficking. We're trying to bring restoration to that huge problem of brokenness in our world. So there's so much brokenness, and it gets so discouraging. And so here's why I want you to know the end of the story of everything, restoration, all right, is three main things here. First, I hope it just brings you hope. Listen, no matter how dark things get, please know this is not the end of the story. This isn't the end of the story. If you, it's okay that the story for now causes us pain, causes us grief, and we shouldn't be surprised by that. We don't have to feel bad about that. I mean, that's what brokenness and what sin does. But He's restoring things together. He's bringing hope. I think about it like this. I like to record sports events, which I haven't gotten to do lately for a while, but in the past would record, say, like a great football game, and I might be at church. I'll say, don't ruin the score for me because I'm going to watch it when I get home. Well, honestly, sometimes people ruin the score for me, the ending. That's okay. Jesus forgives you, and so do I. So I'll get home, but you know what? I watch the game anyway because I'm a diehard fan of my teams. Here's the deal. If I know that they're winning, and I'll watch the game anyway because I like to see them win. And even if they're losing in the middle of the game, playing terrible, it looks like they're losing, and I might feel like, come on, how are you guys playing? Ultimately, I'm not that worried because I actually already know how the game ends. And we might feel frustrated and angry and sad even in the middle of what we're going through, but we don't have to rest in despair because we know how the story's going to end. There's hope. Second, and you know it's the one that gets me out of bed in the morning if you know me at all, we're meant to join God in his mission of restoration in this world. That's what we're called to do. That's why I'm so passionate about serving our local communities, because we're meant to bring restoration there. The whole world is restored, one city and neighborhood at a time. And I mentioned before, God talks about this in Jeremiah 29. It's painted on some garden boxes in front of our church where we share the food with anyone who walks by. And God says, work for the restoration of your city. He says to work for it. And so that's why we serve our communities. We want to restore beauty in our communities. We've done a lot as a church to repaint things and gardening, things that restore beauty. We want to restore economic thriving, support that where we can. We want to restore race relations, right? Bring reconciliation. That's restoring relationships, restore education, restore people's purpose and hope. So that's what we do. And God says at the end of this passage here in Jeremiah 29, he says, work for the restoration of your city. He says, pray for it. Pray for it, because as your city is restored, so you will be. As you bring shalom to where you live, you're bringing shalom to your own life. So I challenge you to do that and to pray for that. Pray for God's restoration. Remember Jesus' famous prayer. He prays, God, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth just like it is in heaven. You know what it's like in heaven? Shalom. Harmony and unity and beauty as it was intended to be. That's the kind of shalom we are meant to restore to our world. So let's get to it. Have a great weekend.